now is I went ahead and looked to the syllabus, and I went and found some of the different textured options and some of the vector options, and I went and clicked some of these sites, and I went and found a picture, and well, this one's just a Google search, but you can download, well, this one doesn't have some of the options are blocked through or filter, but you can find different pictures of iconic information, and you can download them if you so choose. So I went ahead and download a file, or you can just copy and do like a coloring page, because we're going to actually do a simple black and white sketch, and then we're going to color it fairly easy in Illustrator. You can use whatever. So I went and downloaded this object and put it in here. So it will open as a form of a vector file. And you'll see the different files, depending on how the company or the organization put together your vector, it might be grouped. It could be individualized inside of grouped pieces. But you can ungroup it, right-click and ungroup it, and you can start to see then many different pieces of the puzzle. Some of these will have different sections of group. Like this is a grouped section. I want to keep on grouping. Some of these different sections will be grouped. All the stripes and all the variations. I chose a fairly complex option here, it looks like. You should select and ungroup those different layers. So you have now individualized editable layers. Like I can come up and I can change my fill color and stuff in this regard. We've done this concept a little bit already of breaking down a clip art piece or something you find online. We're going to go a little further into the live paint tool, which is to make it a little simpler to modify the colors. Instead of going back and forth and changing colors and clicking things and going back and forth, there's a little different option to do it this way, which I'll show you. I also took the picture and I copied it. Well, let me just start from scratch so I can show you the process. You find a clip art, like a coloring book. I'm going to go ahead and copy this, paste it into my file, and I have this clip art piece. We'll talk more about it on Wednesday, but I do want to talk some of the basics of image trace. Some of you might have heard or be familiar with image trace, maybe watch some videos on it. We're going to take this picture, which is a pretty simple line art piece, and we're going to create it into an editable text. Because right now this is a JPEG. I can't edit it. They're not shapes, they're not a vector. Something I found online that I can't actually break it down and ungroup it. So I select the picture. I go to Object, down to Image Trace. I'm going to go ahead and hit Make. A couple different ways you can find the image trace. Sometimes it's in the menus, depending on what menu options you have available. Image Trace is going to go ahead and I can trace this outline. Gives you some pretty basic outline. I could go more complex than that with some different settings, but I'm not going to do that. And we'll talk about that more on Wednesday. Basically, once I've done my image trace, it's outlined the basic shapes, I can go ahead and hit Expand. Basically, what that does, it now tries to take that photograph, simple piece, and break it into a vector. So now this image has become vectorized. So I've taken a pixel-based image and now I've vectorized it. So it's broken at all the basic parts into a mathematical formula that can now be stretched to become any size. Because it's not pixel-based anymore, it's vector-based. I can stretch it as large as Texas, and as long as I have enough paper and ink, it'll look amazing at close range, which you couldn't do with the actual picture. So I've now taken this, which is pretty powerful to get to think about it. I've got all these different layers here, shapes, objects that I've created. Now that work as an editable, like I would have created the shapes by just taking boxes or different lines. I created the shapes in a matter of seconds, and now I have this really cool option. So I took a basic coloring book, and I can start to color it. I can go ahead and I can select a shape, and I can go ahead and I can start selecting that shape, and then go to my fill and change each individual color. That's slow, that's annoying. There is a better way. So for Live Paint tool, you can't find it in the Essentials. You have to go up to your Windows, go to your workspace, and put it into your Essentials Classic. It's not an option that shows up in the Essentials. You can find it. But if you go ahead and pull into your, it looks like the little shape builder tool, the couple little circles overlapping themselves. We've done the shape builder last week. But you click and pull into that, we get the Live Bucket tool. And I'm going to do the Live Paint Selection tool. The Live Paint Selection tool, I can start to click and select different objects. What did I have selected? There's something going on. And I can start to now select different parts of my picture. Or I can go to my Live Paint Bucket tool. If you like shortcuts, this will be helpful. The K gives you the Live Paint. If you just push K on the keyboard, it gives you the Live Paint Bucket tool. Shift and L gives you the Selection tool. So you kind of go back and forth between Shift, L, and K. But I can actually go ahead and I can start to, with my Selection tool, it's like frozen on me for some reason. That's weird. I should be able to select different portions of my artwork. And I can start to use the live bucket, or the live paint bucket tool, and I can start to paint over some of the different shapes. So instead of having all my different fill colors, and having to go back and forth, it allows me to, with my paint bucket, I can use the arrow keys side to side to kind of maneuver to change. Rotating, what it does is rotating through all my fill colors. It shows you what your different colors are. You can see on your swatches, changing my fill color. So I can just kind of randomly select by using the arrow keys back and forth, start to paint. I don't want that color. Different sections. Now, if they had this in kindergarten would have been a lot easier, I understand. Your teacher would have been very impressed with your ability to stay inside the lines electronically. Fortunately, they didn't have that. Maybe they do that now with like kindergarten and iPads. I don't know. But it gives you the ability to toggle through your numbers, your swatches. By default, you'll probably have a lot of different swatches in here. So that might not be all that helpful because you have dozens of different colors that you're toggling back and forth. Let's say you say, I don't want all these colors. So let's go ahead and delete some of these colors. And then you were to create a few new swatches. So you had just like these color tones here, these simple primary colors. I've eliminated the complexity of, I could just have 6 colors that I can able to toggle back and forth and to change the color. The more colors you have in the swatches, it might be not quite as convenient because you have dozens of them to go back and forth with. But it shows you in the little toolbar, the current one is in the middle, which is right now a purple color, and it looks like a blue color on the left. If I click left, I get to that one, or if I click right, I get to the red color. And then where I click with the mouse clicker itself actually starts painting inside the lines. Now I cannot do that to an actual picture itself. I had to do the image trace to break it into editable parts. You can just take a picture and start painting anywhere you want. You have to break that apart with vectorizing each individual shape. Once you've done your image trace, or something you've created on your own, like I have these boxes here, I create random boxes, I can start to click and just kind of paint them around using my different arrows to change my text, my color swatch. So it just makes it easier than going back and forth for every little box. If you're doing color by numbers, instead of having to go through all your swatches, you're using your live paint bucket tool to just go back and forth between your swatches. Use the arrow keys left and right to toggle back and forth and to select different portions. So it'd be kind of helpful. There's times it'll give this nasty warning message. That's a pain. Sometimes, depending on how the vector's set up or what you've got there, it might not work very well. It's complex. It's too intense. It's got a gradient or some other complexities to it. It may not work as well as you would like. That's very well possible. Why is it not ungrouping? Ungroup. That's weird. I had broken up in the sections already. It's not isolated. Okay, now that I isolated my group, it works. So still subgroup, and I can actually start painting different colors. So if it is more complex, for some reason, you may have somebody step back a few steps here. You can then right-click on it and hit Isolate Selected Group. If it's a really complex group, you right-click on it, isolate the selected group. Once it's isolated, now each piece can be painted with the live bucket tool. Change it to non-Valentine's colors if you're so cruel. That looks nice. Very Valentine's-y. So select your group. If it's giving you issues, select it. Whether this is just from a simple vector or whatever, you can isolate your group. Things won't ungroup. We're going to isolate and select your group. It just won't ungroup to let you edit it. So that is the live paint bucket tool. We'll explore more on Wednesday. We'll talk about the image trace and a lot more of the complexity of this image trace. I just showed you the surface. We will blow your minds on Wednesday, and I'll try to promise that one, figuratively, of course. But we will do some pretty amazing things with the image trace tool on Wednesday. Yes, Thomas.